What's going on, everybody? Hope you are doing well today. I am joined here by Mike Newland with the Propane Education Research Council. We're going to call it PERC, right?
Let's be the last time we say that.
Yes.
Let's
that's
just
too
go
much.
PERC and be done. Yep, you bet.
How's it going?
It's awesome. Appreciate you making time for me today. I'm in town, so it worked out really well. Thanks. It's good to meet you guys.
Yeah. So what exactly do you do?
Wow. So I work for PERC, the Propane Education Research Council. So we are in charge, or responsible, I guess is probably the right word, for the safety training for the propane industry. We also do consumer outreach, which is kind of what we're doing today. We're talking about markets and things that propane can do. And then we also, from time to time, will make a investment in a company that may be bringing a widget to market that could benefit our industry. So I do a lot of that, everything that I just said except for the safety side of it. That's not me. That's some other folks within our organization. But I'm in town today doing some other interview things, and it worked out to meet up with you guys.
So you guys don't exactly sell products. You guys are more about the
education
and research.
That's the crazy thing. We don't sell a single gallon of propane,
Okay.
and we don't technically sell any equipment that is used in the propane industry. So it's our job to really build awareness, just make sure folks understand what the fuel is, what it can do in the market, that it's safe, and make sure we communicate that effectively.
I want to touch on a couple of things. I have lots of questions for you. Not only is where the industry seems to be headed with, I don't know if it's governments pushing it. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know you went to Equip, right?
I was at Equip, yeah.
Okay. And I see a lot of manufacturers building battery-powered mowers and things like that. What is that, government push?
Yeah,
like California?
I think it is. Carb pushes a lot of things. Small engines are under attack, essentially going to be gone in California very soon. So I think that's really driving the whole space and the whole conversation. It's a challenge, to be honest with you, to go battery. And in my opinion, we didn't know each other at Equip, or we probably would have talked there. But last year I was at Equip, and all those electric mowers were prominently displayed on the big turntable, all the lights on them. I mean, it was a big rollout for a lot of those companies.
Yeah.
This year, I went back kind of expecting the same thing, and that wasn't the case. And they all had, all the manufacturers had a electric option in the booth, but you really had to go look for it and find it. And I thought that was interesting. Then I had some conversations with some folks that we know pretty well at some big companies. And I don't know that the average cutter's really making a beeline to buy one of these. And, I think, quite honestly, there's some questions about performance throughout the day. What's the duty cycle of them? Can they withstand what you folks do on a daily basis? So I think that's one. And secondly, cost, gosh, it's a considerable investment. And when you can buy 3 gasoline versions,
maybe 4 with some of these. I saw some crazy prices.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's an uphill climb, and I know it's new technology. So I think it'll change over time, but I know that right now they're not selling as well as what maybe the market hoped that they would.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like I'm not trying to crash down on battery-powered stuff, but my main worry, besides the price right now, is let's say we work all day, right? My guys want to go home, and they don't plug in the mower, and they show up tomorrow, and then what? If it's not charged, it's not plugged in, then we're not working.
I assume you'll pay them for that time, right? While they watch the battery charge?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a concern. Handhelds. Blowers, trimmers, things of that nature. I think that's perfect place for electric battery, because they're so small batteries. I mean, you can keep them on chargers all the time. We chit-chatted a little bit before we started here. We've been running drills and impact on battery for, decades, it seems like, and probably has been decades.
Yep.
I hate to admit that I've owned them for decades, but Yeah, so I think it's perfect technology, perfect spot for it. We just don't know yet on the zero turn stand on market yet, whether it's going to work long term, whether it's not going to work long term. But, and I guess I don't want to come across right out of the gate in the first 5 minutes bashing on electric.
Yeah.
Because the propane industry plays very well with electric in some instances, in some applications. And so we've got some cool things that we're doing with electricity, with renewable, solar, wind, those types of setups where we're running a propane power generator. When the sun doesn't shine, when the wind doesn't blow, they default to our power, our propane power generators. So we play very nice with the industry. This one in this segment, the mowing segment, I think the jury's still out.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's going to come, I think they're not going to stop doing it. So I think eventually technology, like it always does, will hopefully catch up.
Absolutely. It's gonna continue to get better. The interesting thing is all the engine companies, as I use air quotes, engine companies are kind of in the battery segment now too. So I think they're going to get there. They're hedging their bets on which technology wins out, but technology always gets better. It always does. And it'll become more efficient. They'll find new ways to get more longevity out of every charge. And hopefully price continues to come down. It's going to have to. They're going to have to figure that out, I think, for it to really take off in this segment.
Yeah. When you see like things happening, California is just the easiest one to pick on and think about. Can propane help with that? Like, can you still use propane even if they kick out gas?
Depends on the market in California. So small engine, I think, is going to be a challenge. I mean, they are on small engine stuff like crazy in California. What we're seeing in technology in other segments, on-road engines, for example, they want no emissions going in and out of all the ports, all the big trucks that are pulling containers in and out of the ports. We've got a place to play in there big time because we've got great engines. We are super clean on our on-road engines. And
you can run that off of propane?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
So hopefully today we talk through maybe all the segments and talk about what we can do. But we've got on-road engines today, high horsepower, high torque engines that will run in and out of the California ports.
Really?
Yeah.
So you just have like big tanks on the back or something?
They're integrated into the chassis. So if you think about a Class 8 semi that you see, it's got two saddle tanks, one on either side.
Yep.
Those are come off and propane tanks go right there.
Really?
So, I mean, to see it, you wouldn't even really pay much attention to it.
Huh.
And, so it's a cool application, and it's one that meets code. I think you're going to see a lot of port tractors move to propane. Everybody wants clean air. I mean, everybody does. The cool thing for us is we're a clean alternative fuel based on the government's information. I mean, that happened a long time ago with the propane industry. So we've got a great fuel. We've got a lot of it. We sell, let's call just shy of 10 billion gallons a year of propane in the country. We could be selling another 60% on top of that. So we use 40% of what we make, and we export about 60% of the
Really?
balance that we could be burning here.
Wow.
I mean, that's why we're here talking today. It's our goal and our mission to go find places that we can burn more propane.
So let's just take it back to the lawn care industry.
Yeah.
Today, in, let's say, my business, where would I start and what would be the benefit of switching to propane?
Sure. So let me give a little context. Years ago, because somebody listening may say, "Hey, we've tried that," and some folks did and went away from it. Some folks are using propane today, and they'll never leave us, ever. The context is back probably in the 2018 timeframe, there were a lot of OEMs making a propane option from the factory. PERC was doing incentives to essentially guys like you. When you bought a mower, we would cut you a check for the data coming back off of that mower back to us, so we could compile it and give it to the OEMs and say, here's where the mowers are working. Maybe we've identified a couple things that we collectively can work to improve. So that was a program we had, and we stopped doing that, I think, in 2019. Pandemic happens in 2020. Engines are short. Gosh, people just can't get enough engines. And a lot of those, well, in fact, every original equipment manufacturer basically stopped making that SKU, that propane SKU. Didn't kill us in the marketplace because we've got engine conversion companies that sell conversion kits to convert a gasoline engine into a propane engine. So very easy to do. So the benefit to you, I guess, we've got a lot of fuel. It's relatively inexpensive compared to gasoline. And I hate talking price because who knows who's listening to this and where they sit in the country. So not every situation's exactly the same, but our fuel is an incredibly competitive price. We used to track fuel, and there was a very strong correlation between propane and crude oil. And the pandemic really decoupled that. I don't know why. I'm sure there's a analyst that could explain this to me, and maybe I'd remember it, maybe I wouldn't. But there used to be a very strong correlation between the price of crude and the price of propane. Pandemic, that really decoupled, and we've seen crude, gasoline, diesel prices trend upwards ever since the pandemic and not really eased. And propane's been pretty darn stable from a pricing standpoint. So we're in a very good spot. The folks who are using, that are running their fleets, their mowing fleets on propane are doing very well doing that. And that's why I say they're never going to leave us. That's the first reason. So cost could be a reason you want to do it. Another big advantage is if you're in an air attainment area, if you've got summer conditions that keep you from mowing on certain days. I live in Ohio, and I'm very familiar with the Cincinnati market. We lived in the Cincinnati market a couple different times in our lifetime. It's a valley. Air doesn't move through that valley in the summertime. It just kind of sinks in that low area and doesn't move. So the cutters down there have to be mindful of that. Louisville uses, city of Louisville uses our mowers, our fuel in their mowing fleet, I think for the same reason, because they have this very similar issue. So you're not going to lose productivity on days where there's air quality issues. You can run those mowers. Another thing that I don't know that we get a lot of credit for, and gosh, I hope this isn't anybody's employees that are listening, but gasoline, if you haven't noticed, is kind of easy to walk off of your job site. And maybe with an employee from time to time, they may be taking 5 gallons, hopefully not from you, but that does happen. Our fuel doesn't leave your site. It's in our cylinders, and it doesn't come out until it goes in the engine. And so it's a pretty cool scenario. It's a closed loop. We don't have fuel quality concerns either. That's another one I think is probably huge for the market that's listening to this podcast. Our fuel can sit indefinitely and stays in condition. You know, we don't have the ethanol concerns with gasoline from the gas station down on the corner. And I'm sure you've answered this in your podcast. I'd love to hear from you on ethanol through your gas engines, but we don't have issues like that. So that fuel can sit in there for, decades. You hit the key and it's going to start.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you see that you get longer life out of a mower?
Absolutely. You can extend your service intervals. You know, I would always encourage people to follow the recommendation of the manufacturer, but anecdotally, the folks who are running them definitely go longer between servicing.
Huh. And what about like safety-wise and storage? Like, I don't know why I have this in my brain.
All good questions.
Like, if it's in the back of a truck and you turn a corner and it bams up against is that a problem?
So it's not. You would want to secure them, just like you'd secure your gas cans. But we run school buses on our fuel every day, all day long. That propane tank on a school bus is the safest fuel container that they could install on that. Diesel tanks are weaker than ours. Some buses run on gasoline. Propane tank is the strongest tank by far that they can put under that bus. So it'd be the same way. people are nervous around it.
Yeah.
They don't need to be. I mean, you have to be aware. Just it's a fuel. It's combustible, but you need to be comfortable with all the physical characteristics and how things work. But you don't need to be afraid of it.
So if we were running gas like we have just normal mowers, right? How much should we expect it to cost to get set up on this? So
the conversion kits, depending on the engine, and that's the variable within this. We don't know what mower we're talking about. So in general, let's say it's going to be $1,000 to $1,500 to get a conversion kit. Okay, so that's definitely an upfront consideration if somebody's going from gasoline and thinking about going from gasoline and converting that mower over to propane. From an operational standpoint, you should burn very similar gallons to gasoline. Okay, so I don't think there's going to be a big gallon drop that you'll see, but it's going to be the cost. Can you buy it better than you can your gasoline? I think the answer is yes. In a big, broad sense, the answer is yes. So the thing that you do pick up, obviously, is the cleanliness of the mower emissions, significantly drop in there. And I think the thing that people may not consider is the story that you can tell in your contract and bidding. The folks that are using it use that all the time, that we're running an environmentally friendly fuel, and I think it gets them some looks and probably wins some contracts over the lifetime that they're using that within their bidding process.
So would you have basically a big, a tank wherever you keep equipment, and then you fill up smaller tanks?
So you can do it two ways. That's one way. So that's what you're talking about is bulk storage, maybe on your facility where you're keeping your mowers. So you could do that if you're using large enough volume. If you're using small volumes, you could take those same cylinders to a propane company, so they're not making a drop charge or something like that for you. But if you're doing it in bulk, you're doing okay there. Or some folks do cylinder exchange, so they may have a cage sitting there that's lockable at their facility, and the propane company just comes by on a certain schedule and makes sure they'll take the empties, put your full cylinders right in there for you, and then that's what you guys just pull out of for your daily routes.
I know we have a local company, Westland. I've seen them for years have these on their John Deere's, I think it is. And they're silver tanks like this.
Yep.
So how many of those would you need a day?
A day? One.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a 33-pound cylinder. That's what we call it.
Okay.
If folks are familiar with the forklift market, that's the same size cylinder we see on forklifts all across the country. Okay. One of the biggest, probably the biggest use of cylinder propane in the country is forklift market.
Huh.
Every propane or every forklift, if you're indoors, it's going to run on propane for the reason emissions. We can run those things all day long. We don't have to worry about CO2 buildup inside that facility.
Huh.
So, but the same size of cylinder will run that mower. The difference is, this is probably too far in the weeds. The forklift runs a liquid system. The mowers will have a green top on them, and that's because it's a vapor system. It's vapor coming out of that 33-pounder and right to the engine. So
can you hit on that?
Just something we don't need
briefly
to talk about.
Of why that would.
It's just think of it like this: when you hit your gas grill out back and it's propane, that's vapor. So it's a gas coming out of that cylinder. It's gas, and it's ready to burn and light.
Interesting. Okay, so the forklifts use the liquid?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you talked about the conversion kits. Comparing that price, right? You have to. That's a factor.
Definitely a factor that needs considered.
Then what?
That's really the big difference.
How do we find a propane company to drop off or to go exchange them?
Yeah, so I would if somebody's thinking about doing it, that's the first phone call I'd make. Well, it's a very early stage. I would make that phone call before you buy the conversion kit. I would want to know who I'm going to do business with on the propane side and what our setup's going to be. Is it going to be a cylinder exchange? Is it going to be me running cylinders to that company to fill on a weekly basis? I'd want to have that logistics because that's the one that I think scares people the most. And let's get that right out of the way first before you ever make the commitment to go on. I think that's the question that everybody needs to have answered. Who am I dealing with? How am I buying my propane? How are we pricing the propane? And then how are we going to get the cylinders filled and make sure that my crews have propane on a daily basis? So I think that's the first step. Second step is figure out what mowers you're going to convert, what engines they've got in them. They're different kits depending on the model of the mower. Really, it revolves around the engine, but most of these companies will send you a very specific kit for your mower. It's bolt-on to hold the cylinder. They make they engineer all that stuff for you. So when it comes to you, you're ready to go, and it's a very easy process to get converted.
Interesting. So, okay, so we got. Do people get nervous of like not just being able to go to the gas station across the street?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It's very reassuring to have a Casey's or a whatever your local gas station is on every corner. And I get that. I think what you do, if it were me, even though I know we're probably, we should have enough propane in our cylinder for the day, I'm going to carry an extra one with me all the time. Yeah. Just because you never know what could happen. Maybe your routing for the day changes, something weird happens, and that you're not back at the normal time. But I would just have an extra cylinder on the truck no matter what.
How long does it take to switch cylinders?
30 seconds.
And is that easily trainable? Like just showing an employee how to do it?
Super easy. Anybody, it's one of my part-time summer jobs was running a forklift years and years ago during college, and it's literally 30 seconds.
Is it kind of like changing a grill?
Yeah, it's the same concept. It's the exact same concept.
And then it's just live? Just turn the key like normal?
Yeah. Hit the starter and you're running.
Where does the conversion kit go? Like, does it just connect to where?
It's a bolt-on, so it's all the necessary stuff to make sure we're feeding the right amount of propane to that engine.
Do they take the gas tanks off?
A lot of them stay on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. It's a crazy concept. So where do you? Okay, so all these manufacturers are making battery, right?
Yeah.
Should people start looking into? Because gas prices are crazy. So is it like, $1,500 kit, save money, for the next years on this mower?
And that's where we see adoption. We can track adoption of propane.
Yeah.
By charting gasoline prices. That's when we get a lot of interest when gas prices spike. And folks are trying to figure out how to cut costs, and I get it. I mean, you can't run back to every client, however many you've got, every time the gas goes up 10 cents down the street. So that's when we see a lot of interest every year, or every cycle, if you will, is when gasoline goes way up. That's when we see interest.
And you mentioned it was more sustainable. So, like gas prices, we have zero control over tomorrow's price.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So even through those crazy hikes over the last couple of years, you've seen those prices stay relatively the same?
We have, and I'll take it a step further. So not going to mention names. There's some big cutters that are running 100% propane fleets, and they're buying their fuel very cheap because they've got people in their offices that understand hedging and how to buy fuel at the right times for an entire year. So it lends you opportunities. I think on a daily basis since the pandemic, for sure, we've been cheaper than gasoline. And somebody's going to burn me on that. And depending on where you're listening, and I get it, that's a big, broad statement and may not apply everywhere. But we feel very good with where our prices are versus gasoline versus diesel. And then if you spend a little time and understand how to protect yourself and buy forward on some fuel, I think you can really save a lot of money.
And that would be like buying the big tanks.
Yeah, or you can do it on paper. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. So there's some really good people out there making a lot of money using propane on their fleets.
From the companies that use it you've talked to, what's like the number one thing that they go, this is why we do it, and this is why we're happy we switched?
I hate to lead with price, but it's price.
Okay.
They're making money doing it. And they know anybody running gasoline that they're competing against, they know they're in a better cost situation. And but I think they've got a cool environmental story to tell everybody that they're working with too. And I think that, to me, that's easy for me to say. It's not my money. I think that's a really cool story and a really cool component of this. It's better for the environment, and I think that should translate something back to your customer.
Yeah, because I think that's the story that people are trying to say with the battery-powered stuff. Right. But I mean, like, I don't know the prices, but it was like I asked a company, it was like $50,000.
Well, before we start rolling, I was at National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville last February. I won't say the company, but they had a 60-inch zero-turn marked down to $39,995 that had a
sale.
On sale. It was $6,000 off.
Yeah.
It was regular $45,000 and change, and you can buy 3+ of their same model gasoline for that price. And it was astounding to sit there and look at that. I've got it on my phone. I took a photo of the price tag, and it's going to remain on my phone for a long time. But It's crazy. So that whole battery conversation, I don't know how far you want to go on this, but we talked about the environmental aspect, and they are pushing that as really, and it's the real deal. We can't, as consumers, we got to be careful. We can't let the conversation go to zero tailpipe emissions, because that's what everybody wants to talk about on cars. I don't know if that's the terms they're using on mowers or not, but zero tailpipe emissions. That's true. That unit does not produce any emissions. But when you go plug it into the wall, the coal or natural gas power plant has to flip a switch and make sure that the electricity gets there to charge that. And propane, on its own chemical properties, and somebody out there is going to come at me and argue this point, propane is cleaner than the electric grid because of the coal-fired plants, the natural gas plants that are transmitting energy down those lines to charge that mower. We've done the studies. We're trying. California is running us out of the forklift market. We got 350,000 forklifts in California. Wow. That run on propane, and they want every one of them to go away. And we've shown the data to the folks making those decisions that their electric grid is dirtier than the propane forklifts they're trying to eliminate.
Wow. Something else I heard, like I don't remember if it was like with Teslas or whatnot, but just to make the battery caused more pollution or whatever the word was than running a car for 100,000 miles or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's called life cycle emissions. And we study that kind of thing. We've got scientists in our organization. That's their job, is to understand how all that stuff happens, the carbon footprint of creating that battery, what that looks like, the carbon footprint of making that electricity and transmitting it down the lines. I use the analogy all the time. Electricity doesn't magically come out of the wall socket. It has to be generated and transmitted somehow. And there's a carbon impact for doing that. So yeah, it's a complicated conversation to have. Back to the mowers, though, I don't think it's a super complicated conversation for folks to get their mind wrapped around. The biggest change and challenge, I think, is what you brought up first. It's that gas station fear of the gas station not being there for you. I think is the biggest challenge that we try to get over and talk people through. So if somebody's out there listening to this and is thinking about it, I would definitely have that figured out first. Who am I dealing with? How many cylinders do we need? How are we getting them filled? And what's my pricing?
So it's kind of like just finding a mower dealer, of finding somebody you trust, right? That you say, hey, they're going to have the equipment or parts we need when we need it.
Yeah, this is a big time relationship business, the propane industry, and we've got companies that work every state in the country, and we call those national propane companies. There are regional companies. There are single store companies as well selling propane, and I think you got to find who you're comfortable with for exactly what you said. Find where you find comfort and form a relationship with those folks. And maybe it takes you 6, 8, 10, 12 months to get ready to do this. But I would find somebody and talk to them. If you're seriously considering or thinking about it, go find that person that you're comfortable with. Make sure, get a relationship built with them before you ever do it.
The sustainability is like what gets my gears turning. Like just not having tomorrow be 5 gallons because of the war and wherever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're not going to see that. So propane, for those that don't know, is generated from 2 sources really for us. Natural gas production. So as long as we're producing natural gas in the country, we're going to have a lot of propane. And then oil refining. So as long as we're doing those 2 things. It used to be the majority came out of refining. That's really flip-flopped, and we're getting most of our production out of the natural gas plants.
Interesting. So PERC, are you guys the ones that, like, let's say I had all these questions, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't have access to you. Do people go to you to help figure all these things out, find a propane supplier and things like that?
So that's exactly right. So our organization, our website's propane.com.
Okay.
So 2 things about propane.com that maybe somebody wants to do some research could go to our website and find where I can buy propane. So that's prominently displayed. Find a retailer, okay? So you can find the people within, 20 miles of you, and you can maybe start making those calls and figuring out who those people are. The second thing is we actually have a mower calculator, cost calculator on our website that you can plug in. My gasoline is $3, $3.25, whatever. Here's what my local propane people tell me it's going to be. How does that look for my ROI?
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's pretty cool.
So you can go do that today.
Have you ever thought about this or ran the numbers on employees? Let's just talk from a business owner standpoint. The gas station's a terrible place because you go in, let's order taquitos and they've got the kitchen in there. That's 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's get energy drinks. I got to go to the bathroom. Let's go to the bathroom. I mean, you can spend 30, 40 minutes there.
Sure.
I'm
sure.
A crew.
With a crew. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Wait, I have to go to the bathroom now. Wait, I want a taquito. I didn't know they had taquitos or a hamburger. It's a very big time waster. So a lot of business owners that are starting to get crews and things like that, maybe have a shop space, offices, they're actually buying food or have vending machines. I went to Corey Ballard's Perfect Cut last year, and I think they have like 100-something crews. It's a big company, and they put in vending machines there, in a kitchen, in a microwave, in a fridge, because they know how much money, if you have 100 crews, 200 employees at whatever amount per hour, I mean, that's thousands of dollars an hour. You guys spend a half hour there, and the company just lost $500 of unbillable man hours. And the only person that pays for it is the owner to get that taquito. So
we've not done that calculation. I think it would be better served from somebody like you, to be honest with you. We could do it. One, it probably would be about 90% accurate. I'm based on the energy in that conversation there from you. You know what those numbers are for your guys.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have an off-camera conversation about that.
I would be curious, like if because I know Westland does it, and I don't know how many crews they have. They were always like the company I looked up to around here. Like, man, look at they do all the HOAs and things like that. And I've seen propane with them for years, and I bet you that is a part of the reason they do it, not stopping at the gas station. We've all been there where you're mowing, boom, boom, oh no, out of gas. And then you pack everything up and you midday go to the gas station, right? Or, we use like 2.5 gallon cans for our handheld equipment.
Sure. Yep.
Uh-oh. It's all gone, you know? And so you can go 2-3 times to the gas station a day.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm sure.
So take a half hour times 3, that's 1.5 hours that you could potentially have your cruise at gas stations, and the only person paying for it is you, the owner. And people don't think about that. People don't think, like, if you're on the clock and you go do something that I'm not going to be able to invoice for, it's just straight off the top. You know, that's where your profit's going in a lot of these places. I think it was Corey Ballard. In the morning, they were finding that employees were going and getting water and ice and things to start the day at the gas station. And the same thing would happen. You leave at 8, and you're not on the first property until 9 o'clock, 8:45, because you have to stop. So they bought these huge, like, ice machines and water. And so you just go by, you fill up the cooler, and you leave, like 1 minute. And, you know, over the whole year, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of hours.
It's a lot of money.
When you add it up. Absolutely.
So if you take away that excuse of having to go to the gas station, there's just so many elements that are possible.
So maybe we should give away a cooler with the propane conversion kit.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep them out of the gas station.
It's true.
Their water goes in, and
Yep.
they're off for the day.
I saw a Instagram post, not to hammer on this too much, but a guy that spent $800 a month at Sam's Club buying snacks and whatever people would buy at the gas station, Doritos or whatever, Red Bull, water, and he did the math, and it saved him like $2,000 a month. So he had whatever the math would be, savings, $1,200 a month savings by just, people would be like, I'm not going to spend $800 at Sam's, but that money's hidden within your payroll.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, I'm not running a crew, but the math makes sense to me. And you know, if the fuel can do that, I think it would be just an ancillary benefit of it. But the argument could be made.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got normal mowers. I find a conversion kit that fits the engine that we have. I find a propane supplier, and then who installs the kits? And
yeah, so we'd get you with the kit company. Those folks would probably, depending on the model, make arrangements. There's a company out there that actually does dealer conversions. So if you buy a mower from them, you can actually order a propane mower. It comes to the dealer as a gasoline version. They do the conversion before you ever go pick it up. So so it could happen one of two different ways. So it's very easy. Most of those folks have great technical support folks in the background to either make it happen. Some of them can make it happen with your service guy if you've got a service guy on site.
What's the typical, like, ROI after converting?
Yeah, and it's going to depend on where you are in the country, how many hours. I mean, so that's why the calculator on our website's really good, because
if
can
you were to
punch
just
in
do
hours.
like an average,
I would think you're going to see payback in, I would think 18 months.
Okay.
12 to 18 months.
Okay. And then if, let's say you ran that mower to its death.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thousands of hours.
Sure.
Can you take that conversion kit off?
Tricky question. Yes, there are components that you can reuse.
Okay.
And there are companies that they're working towards a 100% reusable kit. So today I would say not 100%. In the near-term future, possibly 100% of all that equipment could come off of it and go on to your next one.
So is it this is a silly question, but the longer you use it, propane,
yeah,
you'll see the ROI better. Like, the more the benefit is. So do you have to pay for the tanks and things like that?
That's something that you probably can work out with your local propane supplier.
Okay.
Most of those folks, I don't want to speak for anybody, but there's a way you don't have to outlay capital. If you don't want to do that, have that in the conversation with the supplier right up front. And a lot, especially on the exchanges, probably not your tanks.
Okay.
If you're refilling them at your site, there may be a reason you want to own those tanks instead of renting them or leasing them from the company. Maybe better for you if you're in a situation that you could outlay the capital for those cylinders. It may be better for you to do that. Typically what happens if there's tank rental involved, there's a different price on the propane than if you're just buying propane and not leasing the tanks from them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So like the only experience I have is like going to like Home Depot.
Sure.
For the grill.
Yep.
Is it similar to that?
Yeah, I think it's a very similar concept. The difference will be you're going to use much larger volumes than you would at a barbecue exchange, a cylinder exchange.
And it's going to be cheaper, right?
Well,
'cause you're buying more?
Theoretically, yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
it should be. The more you use, the better the price should be. Absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've got it installed, and then what about employee?
So we've got training things
Okay.
at Perk on use, safety, those types of things. So all those materials are kind of done for you as a business owner by our company or by our organization. And those are pretty much free to use. So we could send you can order whatever you need. We have online training things that you could have every employee go through online training courses that we offer. Those are free. So from a training safety standpoint, just know the Perk's got that covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is your exact role within Perk?
So I work in the business development group, and so we talked about the three things really that Perk does: safety training that's really outside of BD. That's the safety group that has nothing to do with us. But we do things like we're doing today, and things like I'm in town for in Kansas City right now is go out, talk to folks about propane, why it makes sense in the market. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of trade shows. We don't have a booth at Equip. We used to have a very large booth at Equip. We're thinking about going back next year. So if you see us, stop by and say hello. And then I mentioned earlier in the discussion, we do some private investments from time to time on some equipment on the next widget that may use or benefit our industry, and I get into a lot of that sometimes, those discussions.
Interesting. So, okay, if it was, where do you see the future of this industry? Because right now it looks like shiny batteries. Yeah. If you look at my Instagram or TikTok posts and you go to the comments, it's going to be tough to get the people in this industry to battery powered. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, it is, why did you even post this? That's all I get.
Yeah.
Posting battery stuff.
So I think long term, I guess what I think should happen or probably will happen, I think gasoline will be here for an awful long time. Diesel is going to be here for a very long time as well. I have a very similar view to yours on on battery. I think it's a big uphill climb. Cost is key. They've got to figure out how to prove that the batteries will last all day long in heavy conditions, and they've got to figure out how to get the cost down. I mean, that's a number one. Propane's going to continue to grow. As states, regulations, especially in certain states, get cranked down, all we need is a number. Give us what emissions number is acceptable, and I think propane can meet it.
So are you guys like, when something comes out, you guys are like, well, look at these facts.
Yeah. So we belong to OPEI, which is the small engine. There's a big national organization, and that's one of the great things that they do is stay up on all the regulations from all the states. And I go to their events every year, a couple times a year. And all the engine companies, all the fuel folks are really kind of in a very similar spot. I mean, we've got state regulations moving all over in every single state, and everybody's just trying to figure out where they fit, how to meet the air quality emissions regulations that everybody wants us to achieve. And if I think they can just be clear on what those look like, I think propane specifically has a very reasonable chance of attaining all of those.
That's awesome. So can you hit on the emissions one more time? Because I think I missed that a little bit. It's not zero emissions.
No, we're
like
not zero
a battery,
emissions.
but
Absolutely.
you can run it. What was the carbon thing? You can run it inside, basically?
Well, propane forklifts run inside facilities all the time.
Yeah.
I'll be in Las Vegas next 2 months to a show called World of Concrete.
Yeah.
Trade show.
Yep.
All kinds of concrete finishing equipment. All the ancillary things for that, floor polishers, all kinds of cool stuff. And propane out there, it's just an everyday fuel for those guys because they're indoors all the time. And we do great in that market. So yeah, it's we don't have the carbon monoxide problems that gasoline does, that diesel does. Battery loves to say, well, I'm not throwing stones at the mowing segment, but on the car side of things, zero tailpipe emissions, which is a factual statement. But I'm going to give them credit for all the electricity that they're chewing up and charging those batteries too. So we get into a life cycle calculation and discussion at that point, and we feel very comfortable with where we are in a life cycle conversation against battery with propane.
Are zero turns and stand on zero turns like the smallest engine that propane can do?
No, we've got small engines all the way down to, like I said, those floor polishers and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we do very small engines on, your Honda, the gold standard in the air-cooled segment. There's conversion kits for all that stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All
the way up to the 40 horsepower big block stuff that is coming out now.
Huh. Is there anything we missed as far as propane in the lawn care industry?
I don't think so. Like I said, I think we're in a spot where we're going to coexist with electricity for a long time. I think the handheld stuff, if I'm running your company, I'm probably running battery handheld stuff.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yep.
I don't know that battery makes sense running up and down the hills and through wet grass in the morning and, trying to catch up after a big, long, rainy spell with thick, tall grass. I just don't think it makes sense. So I think we've got a better alternative. You don't give up the horsepower, you don't give up the torque by moving from gasoline or diesel to propane. You still have all those benefits with just a cleaner fuel.
So if we let, because I told you we use battery-powered hedge trimmers, chainsaws.
Awesome.
I like it. It's instant power. You don't have to worry about it not starting. But the real thing is we're not using hedge trimmers right now. We're not going to use it in December, January, February. We're probably starting March. After 4 or 5 months, those things are going to be hard to start up.
Do you have ethanol fuel in those? Maybe.
Probably when I was younger I did, and that's happened. But I've literally used batteries since then.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever have to worry. If the battery's charged,
right.
I know it's going to start.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing with our fuel. And I think that's the beauty of it. The guys that have struggled with ethanol and small engines over time, because there's downfalls and downsides to that, I think they'll the same thing you just said about your electric stuff. When you hit the button, it's going to go. The go button's going to work.
Yeah.
It's going to happen on your propane mower too.
Let's say we're using propane in the mower today, and I turn it off and I don't start it up again until April. 5 months.
Awesome.
It would start right up?
Awesome. Don't do anything to it.
Seriously?
Seriously.
That's wild.
Yeah. The fuel does not go bad. Does not go out of condition.
So you don't have to get it out of the lines or nothing like that?
No. In fact, we do a lot of big generators with propane. And our competition in that space is diesel. Diesel generators for big, large, think,
like a backup generator? Or like a building?
No, yeah. Huge commercial backup data center type stuff.
Yeah.
Has been diesel.
Okay.
We're starting to get that switched to propane for the very reason of fuel condition. That diesel sits in the tank that long, and you've got to turn it over all the time. And propane, you could sit there for 10 years, and when it's needed, it's going to start.
Oh, so like if it was a backup and it didn't get used all
Yeah,
the
it doesn't
time,
get used.
it could just the diesel would just have to sit there.
Diesel goes out of condition. Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
That's very interesting. So where can people find out more about this?
Go to propane.com. So if you got time, go to propane.com. We've got a mowing section on there. If you can't find something, we've got a search tab up top right, just like every other website that you've ever been on. Just type in mowing, and you'll be off and running.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike.
Great.
I appreciate it. This
Pleasure.
has been awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the B&B Lawn Care Podcast. We hope you got some golden nuggets that you can implement into your lawn and landscaping business. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure and leave us a 5-star review. Connect with us on all social media platforms by searching at BB Lawn Care KC. Keep grinding, keep striping, and stay positive out there, friends.